Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where I take your questions regarding American English pronunciation, American accent, intonation, anything to help you improve your overall communication in American English. Please feel free to leave your questions at any time in the comments, and I'll go through them and answer them. I wanted to start today with a little bit of a topic that we cover oftentimes in this class, which is looking at the difference between written English and spoken English. I like to call this real talk, where we look at written words and then we talk about how they actually sound in connected speech. So let's take a look at a couple of quick phrases. Do feel free to ask your questions at any time, and I'll come to them just in just a moment. You may have seen in the thumbnail for this video that I had written out some phrases: want to go, have to work, and need to get it. And so I want to look at how we connect and link and reduce in these phrases. So real talk is all about that we don't speak word by word. Americans are not going to say, I want to go necessarily. Maybe in some cases, yes. For the most part, though, these are going to connect. So want to go often is going to, the T's in want to are going to drop out entirely. And the oo sound of the O is going to change to a schwa, more like an So it's going to sound like wanna go. And you might see sometimes people write that like wanna, do you wanna go? That's fairly casual. And when I see it written, it seems like, I'm probably not going to say that. That's maybe too informal. And yes, in work, maybe you're going to say something more like want to go, want to go. You might put a little bit of a T in there. But really, this is so common and so natural for Americans that they'll use it professionally, casually, all the time. Then we also have, for example, have to work. These link, and my V actually turns into an F. So many times people have an error pattern on the final V sound, like in words like have and give, where they might be using more of an F sound, especially on the word of, which has the sound and the V sound. People often say that as an F incorrectly. In this case, this is one place where you can do more of an F sound for your V. So we say have to instead of have to. So again, my oo turns to an and I'll write it like this: have to. I have to work. Again, if I write it that way, it looks strange. It looks too casual. It looks like I wouldn't be saying that in professional contexts. I'm not going to write it that way. But I am going to be saying that way. And if you listen in real speech, people will say, I have to do it, I have to call her, I have to talk about it. And repeating those kinds of phrases, naturally linking and reducing, is going to help you get that native-like sound. Lastly, need to get it. So we either can just change this to a t, need to get it. We link this T to the next vowel and it becomes a flat T, sounds more like a D. And sometimes I also change this T to more of a D because need ends with a D. So I might either say need to get it, or need to get it. I need to get it. I need to get it right. I need to get it tomorrow. I need to get it to you. So the reason I rewrite, as you've seen in many of my classes and videos, is to help your brain make sense of what these words actually sound like, and that you can use that technique too. So when you are practicing on one of these phrases, write it out in a way that really represents the sounds, and then repeat it, add to it, try to see how naturally and easily and fluently you can connect those sounds and make those reductions. So that's a tip. You can find a lot more videos like this on my Real Talk playlist, and you can learn to use this technique yourself in my Real Talk course that's on speechmodification.com. It's great for anyone, and particularly for those of you who are a little more advanced and where your goal is to sound more like a native speaker and be able to be more fluent and connect your speech more easily. Okay, so thank you. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Isabel. Nice to see you. welcome from India, or welcome to the person who identified yourself as Indian. You might not be currently in India. So Manisha, your question was about speaking in an American accent, what to do. So this is something we talk about frequently in this class. And number one, I say you want to be able to identify what patterns you have. So I'm going to show you some resources on speechmodification.com. You can look up your native language and you can see which accent patterns you're likely to have based on your native language. So when you're on the website on speechmodification.com, what you want to do is go here to the free practice area. And, well, actually you can find materials there as well. But initially you can go on our store page and look at the free downloads. That's over here on the side. And there you can look for your language. So maybe you might just look for the general Indian English speakers, or you might also look for if you're a Hindi speaker, or there's a lot of other Indian languages listed as well. These downloads will show you which patterns you're likely to have, which differences that come from your native language when you're speaking English, and you can begin working through those patterns. You can also look at our courses page and take a look at our course for Indian English speakers, or our 6-week course, and that's going to walk you through some of the basic patterns to start acquiring an American accent. Of course, we can look at individual words like we do in our Word of the Day series, looking at pronunciation, but getting the big picture for how the pronunciation of our speech, so how we say words and sounds, as well as the intonation patterns, so the way we stress words, our pitch, our rhythm. This really affects how we sound and having an American accent. You can use the videos here and all the free practice materials on my website to help you. And as well, I'd say listen to a lot of American speech. So watch TV, movies, try to have conversations, and start listening identify a pattern, try to use it in your speech and listen for it, and just gradually build and shift the way you're speaking into more of an American accent. That's a long answer, but it is a fairly long process to change over into a new accent from an accent that you're currently using. Okay. All right. We have a question about the difference between picture, photo, and gallery. So picture can mean a photo or a painting or a drawing, so it's more general. Photo refers to a photograph, and gallery can be a place where photos or pictures are gathered. So there's art galleries, there's photo galleries. That means a collection of pictures or photos, or art, or other kinds of things can be in a gallery too. Hi, nice to see you. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so we have a question about consciousness, and I think your other word, conscientiology, I don't think that's actually a word. So it would follow the rules of eology at the end, but let's just look at consciousness because I think that's going to be helpful for you. So consciousness has first syllable stress, and because the letter O and the letter CON are stressed in this word, that O is going to say ah. So I'll rewrite it with an ah, AH. It's going to be long, and my shusness are going to be shorter. The SC says an SH sound, so it sounds like sh, and the IOUS, shus, is basically just a schwa sound, conscious. And then finally, the last E can either say an sound or an I sound, consciousness or consciousness. I think I use more of a ness sound, but it's short and unstressed, so the vowel just needs to be lax and not held for very long. One of those front vowels will do. It could even be a schwa, consciousness. You might see that in the dictionary as well. Yes, consciousness. And there's conscientiousness, a few other words like that. I've actually covered those in my Word of the Day series. So when I go back over the video for the replay, I'll put in the comments timestamps with what we're talking about when, and I'll give you some links for some of those other words. And so you can go more in depth and get a little bit more of a detailed explanation for your word. Thank you for that request. Okay, Ahmed would like to ask about arguably, longings, and I'd. Okay, so let's go through your words. So arguably has first syllable stress, and the letters AR do say the R sound, just like we are, just like the verb. Argue, this GU says a G sound, a G sound, and a glide, a Y sound, GU. So when you're saying argue, you might want to start with the U and then add the G. U, GU, argue. And then we have two more short syllables, arguably. So a tense E at the end, a schwa here, arguably. It's not super easy because we have the L and the R's in there, so you might want to break it down syllable by syllable, arguably, and then speed back up. You just want your length here and these other three unstressed syllables to be shorter. Then let's check out your other words. You asked about longings. So let's look at longing first and then longings. So if I'm longing, the challenge here is that I have two NG sounds. So working on just the first word part of it, long, first is going to be helpful. This letter O says vowel ah. Looks like this in the dictionary. It's a rounded vowel. It's not an O sound or an ah sound, kind of ah, law, just like in the word law. So trying my law and then adding my NG sound. In the IPA, it's one symbol because it is one sound. It's not an N and a G, but rather I lift the back of my tongue to do the ng sound, long. And then what I have to go to is go back to my NG with a little bit of an I in between. So nging, longing. This is also true in words like singing, bringing, etc. when there's two NGs. I'll often hear people make the error of having a little G sound in there, like longing, and you don't want that in this word or in the word singing or bringing. So just you have to be able to release the NG into the vowel without letting the tongue come down and making a G sound. When I say long, I have to leave my tongue up and stop my voice. If I let my tongue come down, long, you'll hear there's a little G or K sound that happens, long. And you don't want that G or K sound. Basically, there's no G sound. Well, there's no N sound either. It's an NG sound. I do have a video about singing and some videos about NG that can help you with putting two NGs together. That's going to be a little bit challenging, but you'll be able to get it eventually. All right, so longing. And then lastly, you wanted to know about the word I'd, the contraction, which we use for I would or I had, mostly for I would. I like to rewrite it like this because as soon as people look at the contraction, it may be hard for them to contract it, to make it just the I and the D sound. They might have a tendency to add a little I had, a little syllable there. And it's actually one syllable, two sounds, the I sound and the D sound, just like the word I'd, like I eyed that in the window. So sometimes looking at it in a new way can help you get the pronunciation. Otherwise, just breaking it down with the I and adding the D at the end. I'd like to. I'd have to think about it, etc. That's a great one because a lot of non-native speakers are hesitant to use contractions, and they're actually very, very typical for native speakers. They're formal, they're professional, efficient, and fluent, and that's a big part of, again, speaking an American accent, moving more to that native-like sound, is using contractions wherever possible. Okay, let's see. Isabel would like to know if I have helped people with Spanish background to help them get rid of their accent. Yes, definitely. I do actually have a lot of customized materials just focused on Spanish speakers, both from Spain or from Central America, Mexico. So of course there's differences in Spanish depending on where you're from. Even Argentinian Spanish is different. So you're going to have some slight differences in your accent patterns. But I do have downloads and free lessons for Spanish speakers on speechmodification.com, as well as one of my online courses is focused specifically on patterns and practice for Spanish speakers. So yes, thanks for that question. I need to slow down. I'm talking too fast today and drying out my throat. Okay, we have a question about the word guillotine. Literally versus literature. Okay, so let's look at some of your words. I will, like I said, go back after class because I actually have a number of videos for some of the words that you mentioned. So I'll give you some links as well. But let's start with your word guillotine. So this is one that comes from the French, and so that affects how we pronounce it in American English. We may not say it exactly like the French, but guillot, we don't say the L sound. So we say first the G sound and an E sound, guillotine. And then this O becomes more of an and then we have another tense E at the end. First syllable stress. So guillotine. Then you also asked about whether or not literally is similar to literature. Yes, they have a similarity that they both have the flap T. So they both start with this sound, litter. First syllable stress, literature and literally, literature. The thing about literature is that we either will say it as literature or literature. So if we do use the flap, it's similar to how we do literally, which is literally. So we can do literally and literature, or we can also do literature with 3 syllables. Then we use the T because it becomes a TR blend. That's more similar to British as well. Literature versus literature. You can do either. I do think I made a video for literature and it hasn't come out yet. That's part of the Word of the Day series. And I do have a more extensive video for how to pronounce literally because that's something I've been asked many times and it's a useful video. So again, I'll put the link to that in the comments after I finish live class. It'll be in there with the timestamps for you. Thank you for that question. And then you had one other. Okay, 2 others, hostile versus hustle, and the word kernel. Okay, so kernel I've covered in a Word of the Day, so I'll just briefly tell you that it's the same as this kernel. So you're asking about this kernel. It doesn't really make any sense. I don't know why something spelled like this is pronounced like this, but it's just an and a null with a dark L and a schwa, kernel. That sounds like kernel. For more details, you can check out my video for kernel. It'll help you. And then you also asked about hostile and hustle. So hostile can be either ha-style or hostile or hostile with a schwa at the end. Almost no vowel there, kind of going right from the st to the ul, stol, hostile. In that case, it has first syllable stress. So trying like hostile intent, hostile army, hostile neighbor, or hostile. I guess that still has first syllable stress. You can choose between doing il or ul at the end of it. Versus hustle. We don't say the T there, and it has a schwa sound rather than an ah, like in hostile. It sounds like huh. hustle. And then it's basically almost no vowel in that second unstressed syllable. We go into that dark L, a little bit of a schwa, if anything, hustle. So he had to really hustle. He was really hostile, or he was really hostile. Yeah, okay, great. Good question. I wouldn't have thought to talk about those words, and they are somewhat similar in spelling and somewhat similar in pronunciation as well. Thank you. Okay, so hi, Halim. Nice to see you. He's asking about the words evolution and ladle. So evolution has second to last syllable stress, has the in the first syllable, eva. The O says vowel schwa because it's unstressed. And then we have the tense u, evolu, lu. And then our T-I-O-N ending just has our schwa and our shun, evolution. I think British may say it more like evolu with a glide there, evolution, and Americans just say evolution, no glide. And then your other word was ladle. So this is a good example, just like in the word little, where I have to do a flap, a D and or flap T right into a dark L. There's a little bit of a schwa in there, ladle, little, but mostly I'm going from the D, dropping the back of my tongue down into the schwa position and leaving the front of the tongue up for the L, dull, dull. And then I just have first syllable stress, tense A, lay, ladle. Make sure you use a diphthong for that A. It's gliding between two sounds. A little ladle. That's kind of a tongue twister. Maybe I had a little ladle. I gave it to you later. How about that's my new tongue twister. Okay. We have a question about the word David, and this viewer says that he or she hears people calling him David with a T. I think you should put the end sound on and not a T. Yeah, so David, I would never say that word. I would never say that name with a T sound. But what you might notice is that I also don't really say David with a clear D sound. What we tend to do there is make a stop. So David, I don't really release my air from that D sound, which might make you sometimes hear it as though it were a T. The difference is if, let's say, here's another word, divot, that does have a T. If I say that with a stop sound, divot, the difference here in vid versus vit is that this vowel sound is going to be longer and this one is going to be shorter. So if I said it with a T, it would sound like David. It would be very short on that stopped. But I say David, I'm holding that vowel longer. So even if I'm not saying a clear D, David, with a released sound, David, I'm holding that longer, and your brain will hear it as a D. So what might be happening is that people are saying David, they're using a stop to D, and you're used to hearing that we don't always release those T's, and so your brain might be hearing it as a T. To be clear, yes, I can definitely put the D on, especially if I'm linking to another word like David is coming, then my D is going to really be there and linking. But if I'm just saying, hi, David, I'm not really going to release that D sound. So D's and T's at the end are complicated. You can use my videos to help you. What happens with the T at the end is similar to what happens to the D at the end as well with those stop sounds. Okay. We have a question, Teresa. Hi, nice to see you. She's asking about the words correct, wooden, and wouldn't. Okay, good. So for correct, in this case, I will probably release and say that T sound because it has a k with it, correct. And second syllable stress has the vowel. So try wrecked. And then the CO, it's tempting to say co. But we actually say that with a schwa because it's unstressed. So it should sound like correct. That's correct. Correct. Yeah, I think I pretty much say that T. It's pretty hard to do a stop T after a K, so I think they both get released. Correct. He was correct. I got the correct information. Correct information. In that case, maybe if the next word starts with a vowel, I might link it and make more of a flap. Correct information. But it's not a strong D in any case. And then your other words were wooden versus wouldn't. Okay, yeah. So in wooden, I might not say wooden with two clear syllables. The second syllable is going to be mostly just a syllabic N sound. Wooden. And I'm going to kind of swallow this D again, using more of my stop D versus wooden. I can say it with a release D, wooden. A wooden boat, but you'll hear often that we kind of go right from a stopping D into a syllabic N. Wooden. So I just lift my tongue once, make the D sound kind of short, and release right into the N. And then wouldn't. We also often don't say wouldn't with a T. We do the same thing we do for wooden, but we make the N really short. So in this case, stopped D, longer N, wooden. In this case, stop D, shorter N because we have a stop T, wouldn't. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't. If I'm going to wouldn't do, then maybe I'm going to link a little bit, but basically really tough because we don't say the D or the T on that word. He wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't go, wouldn't. Challenging, definitely a challenging combination. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. One thing that I do talk about, going back to our real talk from the beginning of class, is that we often say wouldn't with wouldn't have, and then that will reduce to wouldn't have. And that's almost easier, where you can kind of say wouldn't have. So this one gets stopped, wouldn't have. And then we link those together. I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have done it. That's probably a good way to practice because a lot of times that's one of the contexts that we use wouldn't the most. So just one suggestion for working on that challenging one. Okay. Someone asking, anybody else here from Brazil? I have a number of clients from Brazil, and maybe you guys can connect. Let's see. We have a question about route and route. Okay, so the viewer is saying that in movies, they hear people saying, I'm en route. And it sounds like route. So yes, for this route, it can be pronounced like route or route. I think what they're saying though is probably en route, which is from the French, rather than en route, like I'm on the route. So en route means I'm on the way. So that's probably why they have a tendency to use more of the route instead of like he's on his route, like the mailman is on his route. Then we might use more of the route pronunciation versus if I'm saying I'm on the way, I might use more of this French, I'm en route. So probably that's what you're hearing. They're using this on rather than this on. Good question. Thank you. All right. We have, yes, people say different sounds for route and route. Can the word while be reduced? Let me think about that a while. While I'm talking, while we're going, while. Maybe a little bit in the, like, while we're talking about it, while we're, the I Yul, Yul. So we have the diphthong I, and then we have the schwa before the dark L, Yul. And then because those glide, because those connect, we have a glide between while. If I'm saying it by itself for a while, or if it's stressed, then I'm probably going to do all these vowel sounds. But if I'm saying while we're going, while we're going, maybe I'll reduce this a little bit, and it'll be kind of more like an ah and an or yeah. I think you can speed up and really glide that faster, but not really a true reduction on while. I'll examine that a little further and maybe do some listening for what I hear in native speech. When I start talking about it, I think more about all of those different sounds. So that might be what you're noticing if you're hearing that it sounds a little different in connected speech, that it might be that combination of vowels might get reduced a little bit. Let's see. I am not familiar with the term light moon, so I would maybe Google that in a slang dictionary. There's a lot of places where you can find like alternate meanings for words that are used in slang. That's what I would do for that request. Another request for the word prescription. Okay, let's write that out. Prescription. I say that it has second syllable stress, so I say the PRE with the schwa, like prescription. This T gets stopped. I don't really say prescript. Maybe the TION is actually just more like part of the suffix, the shun, that we looked at earlier with our vowel schwa, prescription. Prescription drugs. I need to pick up a prescription. I'm trying to think if there's any context in which we would say prescription, but I don't think so. I think pretty much it's entirely a unstressed, reduced vowel in the beginning with that schwa, prescription. If you have trouble with this part of the word, the stress part, you can try doing rip, crip, scrip. Just build it up from the R. The R is the most important to get correct, and adding on the other sounds in front tends to be easier than trying to start with S and then moving into those other sounds. Yeah, that's a good word. Thank you for asking about that one. Other questions from anyone? Thanks so much for all of the support, guys. I really appreciate seeing you here week after week. It's nice to meet some of you who are new. There have been just some wonderful suggestions recently for Word of the Day classes, and I'm working my way through your requests. If you requested something and you haven't seen it yet, it's still coming. I just have a long list, and there have been many, many good words to work on. So I'm working my way through those, and we'll keep having our daily classes as well as our Friday question and answer classes, so you can ask your questions live. And those of you who are channel members know that you have an extra class on Sundays where we do this live question and answer as well. And channel members can ask their questions throughout the week, and I'll cover their questions that same week. So if you're interested in kind of jumping the line or getting a little bit more, some extra perks, you can check out the options to join the channel. If you don't want to, no worries, no pressure. You can just keep coming to our free Friday classes. And I love having you here. I love providing that for you and seeing you each week. So thank you for your support and for attending class. Oh, I just got a whole host of new questions. Okay, we'll take a few more and then we'll need to wrap up for today. If I don't get to everyone's question, I will make note of it and talk about it and respond in the comments to you. So we have a request for forward. Is W or R stressed? Forward. First syllable stress. So make sure you have your R there for forward. Yeah. And then entrepreneur, I do have a video for that. And after class, I'll put the link in the comments. You can come back to the replay and see more details there. But it sounds like entrepreneur. Did I spell that right? Entrepreneur is last syllable stress. This EN sounds like an ah N, like our word on. And then we have this E says schwa, entre, pra. Basically, these three unstressed are all schwas. They all sound like a, no, these two are schwas, and this one's an ah. Entrepreneur. And then we have new, like new, and entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. Yeah. You can get a more detailed explanation in my video where I walk through a little bit more carefully. Secondary stress on this on from the French. That's definitely a word that is a little bit challenging to sequence and get those R sounds and get the syllable stress and all the different vowels right. So like I said, I'll direct you to the video where you can use it for a little bit more practice. We have a question about the word this. Fairly straightforward. We have a voiced TH like in that and those. Make sure your voice is on, tongue between the teeth. The I vowel and an S sound, this. And then we have a request for modernization. This one follows our rule for second to last syllable stress. So basically almost, I think anytime you see an Asian word, the A is stressed and the shun is unstressed at the end. And the syllables before the Asian are also unstressed. This has secondary stress on the first syllable. So the O says ah, ma, and then we have der, na, modernization, modernization. Watch out for this We still have to do the R sound, even though it's unstressed. So oftentimes people will accidentally make that one more of a modernization, and you want to make sure you still have a tight modernization. Not easy, but if you break it down syllable by syllable, slow it down, then speed it back up, you should be able to get it. Question, is it common to hear the expression a chip off the old block in America? Yeah, definitely. I think that's commonly known. I'm not sure how modern or frequently it's used. I certainly have heard it used in casual speech and have always known what it meant. So it's definitely widespread. I don't know whether it's kind of currently popular or in vogue, but you could use it and people would know what you meant and it wouldn't sound strange to use it. Okay, and then the question, one last question, and then, two more. Okay, so we'll do candle. There's another of our, just like with ladle and little, another of our syllabic L's with a schwa. So, and then we have the ah vowel, just like can, excuse me, first syllable stress, candle. Rhymes with handle, handle, candle, sandal, etc. And then one last one, through. I do have a video for through and though and thorough. You might find that helpful. So if I remember, I'll put the link there in the comments after to help you with that. This is the same pronunciation as this through. So I threw it through the door. Basically, voiceless TH plus R tense oo, through. That might be a way to rewrite it. If you have trouble with the THR combo, start with your R, roo, and then just sneak your tongue forward. Roo, through. I do also have another video just talking about THR combos and how to do those. So, okay. Yes, through is hard to speak. Okay, I keep saying last one, and then I want to try to get to everybody. So definitely last one this time. Failure. Tough word. So failure, we have first syllable stress. We want to have our tense A sound, fail. And then this L is a dark L. So we kind of have a schwa before it, like fail. And then this it starts with, it has an oo sound, but it also has the glide, failure. So it doesn't actually have an oo sound. It has just an sound. So I would kind of write that, maybe even glide it out as failure. And then you want to speed this part up so that it's not really two syllables, not failure, but failure. But to get fail, you might have to kind of spread it out more, fail, and then condense it to fail. Then add your year, failure. Hopefully you won't have a failure when you're attempting to say that challenging word, failure. Thank you for that request. That was definitely a good one. And so I'm going to wrap up for now. I know a few of you have a couple unanswered questions. I hope you can make it back again next week to ask again, and I will take a look at those. And if I have a video for you already, I'll send you a link or put a link in the comments to help you find resources for your words. If you're watching for the first time, we do this class each Friday at this time, and the replay will be available, and that's on my playlist of speech modification live streams, so you can go back and check. And recently I've been going through and documenting, timestamping what words we cover where, so that you have a reference point and some additional resources for some of the words we discussed. I'll be back again tomorrow with another Word of the Day video, and on Sunday with our members only class, as well as on Sunday we have our Phrase of the Week, where we look at phrasal verbs and idioms and expressions. So I hope you'll be able to join me for that. I look forward to seeing you again in next Friday's class. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, guys. Thanks for a great class and your wonderful questions. See you soon.